And this will be the fretboard. So I've got my nice piece of Bolivian rosewood. So I'm going to have to square up one of these sides so that I can mount it to my fret slotting template. This will get mounted right on here. Kind of butts up against this piece of plexi that I glued on here for the nut position. And then I just kind of line it up with this straight edge, and then this can get laid onto my fret slotting table saw. I'll show you a little bit later. First things first, I have to true up one of these sides so that it can be flat and level, and then I can square off of that. And so I'll do that by running one of these edges on the joiner, and then I'll probably have to do some thicknessing and get this ready to get the fret slotted in. And you can see the grain running out sort of that way, so I'm going to joiner and run it along this direction. And I'll try to square that as best I can on the sander. So it would appear as though I've got this nice and square. You can see that the nut is really square to the side. I can look down there. Square. Classical fingerboard, which is what this is, the nylon string, has no radius in the top, so it's just a flat surface front and back. So I'm just going to thickness it down to a little less than 1/4 of an inch. Tell you what, we're going to switch and use the big sander. Okay, I've got this thing planed down, just about the right thickness, and I know that this side here is the square side, and this side here is perpendicularly square to this side. And this will butt up nicely right here to the nut. I can tell it's very square already, so we're just going to have to double stick tape this down to the template, and it should be ready to fret slot after that. Alrighty, so I get one kind of shot to do this. I like to do it on a nice flat square surface. This melamine deck here is a good one to do that on. So I'm just going to go ahead and line up the nut right here, and I should be able to just squeeze these together. Make sure it's nice and straight and square. I think that's it. Let's see. Yep. This is the jig we have built for the table saw that can ride on the guides of the table saw. And this is a special blade. This blade here has actually been turned down, so the thickness of the blade is a lot thinner than a standard table saw blade. So that is exactly the width for the fret tang thing. You can see my index pin right here, and that's what holds this jig in place while the blade cuts it. So since there's no radius in this fretboard, we don't need to cut it extra deep. We can cut it almost exactly the same as the frets tang themselves. So we're going to go with a little less. How about that? Just exactly 1 tooth width. now that we have it slotted, I can draw on the profile and we can cut the profile, and this thing will be pretty close. 7. And 12th fret is 2.42. About perfect. Got this fingerboard profiled down almost to the spec at the nut and at the 12th fret. The slots are slotted. It's profiled. The nut's square. I trimmed the end. Here we got 20 frets on this bad boy. And it is now time to get this thing smoothed out. I'm going to probably do a 220 sands to the top and a 400. Fretboard all the way sanded up to 800 grit, I believe I left it at. We're now ready to begin the long daunting process of fretting this up. On our steel strings we put a 12-inch radius. This, however, is a nylon string fretboard, so it's just getting a flat radius, essentially no radius at all. So this will be the call that I use, so I can now swap that out. And this just magnets right in there. We're good to go. And this will be the fret wire I'm using right here. The bottom of that little piece is what fits down into the slot, and then the fret kind of sticks up over top of it while the T tang fits down into the slot. As you can see, these are already pre-radiused, so I'm going to have to kind of press that out as I press them into the slots. But first I will cut them to length and see how well they press in there. Got all the frets pressed in there. I need to trim off the excess, and then I'm going to use the table sander here again to level that out. So I got those trimmed down. So now I'm going to bevel the edge of that fret. You can't have them cut straight off because there's little corners. We're going to go ahead and dress those later too. We're going to actually file the corners, but first I'm going to put a little 30-degree bevel on the edge of both sides. And I do that by just using a straight edge, and I can just kind of tilt this thing on its edge like this and do a few passes. Starting to grind that down. Alright, I've got the frets beveled here. I'm going to actually air hose off the ends of them and make sure that the holes are exposed, that there's a little bit of extra fret slot underneath there, so I should be able to wick some super glue down in there on both sides to get the frets actually glued in. And then I'll seat them with the press just one last time to make sure they're seated in as firmly as they can be while the glue dries. Frets anymore, we're going to let that glue dry. That's it. They're nice and smooth now. I'm gonna go ahead and mark the spots with dots. We'll put it on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's double dot on 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 19. And what I actually do is now that I've got my little center line marked on there, I'm going to thumbtack the middle. Boy, that rosewood is so hard, it's bending the tip of my thumbtack. Thumbtack's bent. So, there we have that. Now we can drill them.